All right, so just to catch everyone up real quick where we left off last time, I added the contact information here. I added some HRs in here to create the lines that are on the page instead of, because another student has suggested that I was going to use the border box or border top, border bottom to figure that out, but it seems like a nice clean way to do it. So
Sorry,
added those in.
tell me what an HR is.
Yeah, so I actually didn't know this until recently. An HR is actually just this line. It just adds in a nice horizontal. I think it stands for horizontal, and it adds in a horizontal line.
You can also add a class to it, and you can actually style the horizontal line.
Yeah, like, oh, that's cool. So you could probably give it like more pixels, make it thicker, change color and
Yes.
stuff. Cool.
That's just the HTML styling, not so you don't have to do it in CSS.
Yeah. So normally I would have added the line to the header, like with a border bottom, 1 pixel, solid black, something like that. But yeah,
Right.
This is a nice way to do it, because then you got to add padding to separate it, and then you got to add margin to separate it on the other side. So this is a good way to do it. And then, like Don said, we'll probably end up adding some styling to it to give it that spacing that we want.
Okay.
Some other things I did. You guys were here for when I added these IDs. I didn't add it to this because I forgot to add an article here, so we'll go ahead and do that right now. We have an address tag. I like to keep only an address in an address tag. Sometimes people put the phone number and email in there, and I don't do that. I keep it in the address. And then I got 2 little hints here for working with phone numbers and emails. These actually make them functional. Like some browsers will be able to pull up a phone. Like on my Mac, it would probably pull up my cell phone through my iCloud account. And then for this, it'll open up a modal to send an email from the email in your computer. So those are cool things to add to emails and phone numbers. Yeah, so let's add that ID that I was talking about. And then we'll just call this one contact, obviously. And again, it's okay to use IDs here because we're actually using them for functionality on the page. We're not using them for styling. You don't want to use IDs for styling. It's too serious of a thing for styling.
So Joe, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Is it possible to have an ID and a class on the same tag?
Yeah, totally. You could have as many classes as you'd like. You can only have 1 ID per tag. And like we talked about last time too, the ID has to be unique. You can't have the same ID throughout. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, let me make sure I added that to the nav too, so that way that works. And I did not. Cool. Let me save this. We'll give this a shot. So the problem here is that everything's pretty much on the page, but contact not. So let's try that. And you see it jump down to where contact was. Now it's at the bottom of the page, so we hit the bottom of the page, but otherwise contact would be at the top of the page if there was like a lot more information under it. Does that make sense? Yeah, features works, about works. Oh, maybe it puts about in the middle of the page. I guess that's what it's trying to do. So yeah, cool. We got a thing that works. Great idea, just stays here and reloads the page. A cool feature there that we're going to try to implement, we'll keep this nav bar stuck to the top. So when I go down here, it'll still be up here, and then it'll jump back to the top when we hit the button. All right. So I think HTML-wise, we are in good shape. So everyone's all caught up now with what we did. So let's get over to the CSS, and someone can walk me through that. Actually, because this is we're working with Lambda stuff here, let's stop and do our get right now. So I always, like I told you guys last time, I use ls to find out where I am in my terminal. I always use get status to find out where I'm at with my get. So many times people see the text show up and freak out, and then they DM me and they go, oh, it's not doing something and blah, blah, blah. And what do? I get in a Zoom with them and I read it and I'm go, yep, that's what you have to do. So we read this, changes not staged for commit. So what does it say? Use get add file to update what will be committed. Easy. All right. And if I wanted to get rid of my changes, it even tells you how to do that. Now that's not something common that you're going to do, but it's there. Okay. So we'll do that. Instead of a file name, I always give it a dot. Git add dot means git add all of these files. So if there was more than one in here, it would do all of them. So we'll do that. We're going to commit it. Then we're going to give it a message. Commit messages need to be short. They need to be meaningful. Don't just change some stuff. Don't put swear words in there. Like, they're on GitHub. People will see them. There's actually a Twitter account that like tweets out commit messages with swear words off of GitHub. And it's very hilarious to watch, but you don't want to be on that page. So,
And your commit messages are limited to 50 characters.
Yeah, great. Yeah, short and meaningful, exactly. 50 characters. I didn't know that, so that's a good detail. So here we're just going to add semantic HTML tags to HTML file. Or we'll say to index.html file. I like to kind of give a hint of where I was working, whether it's like when you work on a bigger project, like a folder or whatever, even though the commit is going to show up on which file it is, but I add it anyway. So there's that. So should I push right now? I'll ask you guys. Does anyone, what do you guys think? Should I push? Why no, Sarah? I see you shaking your head.
You don't want to push until you're pretty much ready to turn it in. You can commit often, but you don't push it until you're ready to call it your solid work, I guess.
So, all right, I have a question for that. What happens if you do all these commits and your internet goes out during the middle of a sprint challenge and you don't push your sprint challenge up in time?
Yeah, so I think the point Don's trying to make is it's actually okay to push. Like, we want to push almost as often as we commit. It's an extra step, so I give myself some commits before I push, but that was not the reason I was looking for. But it was a good guess. So
because I was told you can commit as many times as you need to, but push it when it's ready. And I thought, oh well, how am I going to get it up there?
You may be thinking pull request when you're ready. Pushing is okay as often as you need to, but a PR should only be made when something's functional and ready. So the answer I was looking for was I'm still on master. We definitely don't want to push for master. That's a big time no-no, especially if we're working on a big team. So we need to make a new branch. And then I can push from here. So I did it a little out of order. Obviously, you should make a new branch and then do your work and then add and commit. But if you notice, I added, committed, and everything, and then I switched branches, and that's okay. I'm going to push, and we're going to be safe. So usually when you do git push for the first time, it fails, but that's okay because if you read, we have exactly what we need to write. Cool. And that's how you do it from the terminal. I'll go ahead and explain later how to do it from VS Code's really nice GUI system here to do it. So we'll work with that later. But for now, we're okay. We're going to go ahead and start working on our CSS. You've probably all figured out by now that when you work on CSS, it's really nice to have them side by side. That way you can reference what you're working on, what you're trying to style. All right, so let's get this started. Usually when I style, I start from top to bottom, and I start from outside to inside. So what that means is top would be this nav bar. Inside from outside would be the nav down to the A tags. That doesn't make a lot of sense on the nav bar, so let me explain it again with the header. After we finish the nav bar, we'll move down to the header, the topmost. We'll work on the outside, which will be the entire header, to the inside, which will then be, we have a div around this and a div around this. And then we'll work further inside, and then we have the H1 and we have the button. Okay, so that's generally how I try to style pages. That's what we're going to do. All right. So we're not going to copy paste any work from yesterday. We're just going to keep working. There we go. if I want to get this nav bar, what should I use to get it? If we're looking at it, we don't have anything to reference other than the name itself, right? Nav. So that's what we'll do. We'll go with the nav. We're going to style that. Everything's already in line. My issue right now is spacing. I want things spaced evenly. And that sounds like a job for Flexbox. So if I display flex, nothing should happen. Everything's already horizontal due to the nature of the nav. But if I want to space it along the main axis, which default is the x-axis, we're going to use justify content. And I always like to start a space around to see how that looks. No real reason why. Oh, got into some Vim habits there and try to :W. There we go. It's Command S. So let's see what that did. That looks pretty good. Spaced around. I got good spacing on the edges even. Cool thing about Flexbox too is it's somewhat responsive. So that's nice. So yeah, that looks like it worked out good. These underlines look kind of ugly, so let's get rid of those. We're going to drill down into this nav a little bit. We're going to grab the A tags. So any link, any A tag, anchor tag is going to have what's called text decoration on it. Usually in resets, it's in there. It looks like the Meyer one does not have it, which is okay. So we'll just say none, and we'll see if that got rid of it for us. So save and refresh. So there went the underlines. Now the only stylings that it has that we don't like are the colors and the visited. That dark purple color that comes from visited. And then, of course, we could just change the color here for when they're unvisited, which, oops, that's not what I want to look at. Looks like they're gray. I'll just go with gray. Our designer did not tell us what color he wanted them, so he's getting gray. All right. That's what we got. And that actually overwrote the visited too, which is a nice feature of CSS. Obviously, it was specific enough that it ignored this next part, which is the purple. So that's cool. We don't even have to deal with that. I didn't expect that, to be honest. All right. Last thing. There's one more thing that's keeping this from being right. How do I zoom out? Oh, it only has zoom in. Am I missing it? Huh. It only has zoom? It has to have zoom out. Any ideas here, Don? Okay. Cool. Well played, terminal. Let's see.
What was going on there? I'm sorry.
I couldn't zoom out of the image.
In VS Code?
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually just close it out and reopen it.
All right. Let's open it with something else to look at it then.
You can right click. No, you could. Well, there you go. You're using them. Are you using a Mac?
Yes. I'm a programmer, Don.
Oh.
All right. So the next thing we're gonna have to fix here is the centering. So if you look at our page, preview page, you'll notice all of our links are at the top. They're touching the top. They're not centered with this image. So that's gonna be another feature that we're gonna use from Flexbox. And also we're gonna give it a little margin at the top just to get it away from the edge, okay? So let's do that. That's gonna be fun to rewatch on the video. What the heck? Why can't I unzoom this picture? All right. So, before I make a fool of myself, let's actually just check the docs and make sure that, no, I'm gonna go for it. I think I know what it is. So, where we have Flex Display, we have the space around for the justify content. We're gonna use align items, and that is, I forget the technical name in Flexbox, but it's the not main axis. In this case, it's the y-axis. So what I mean by that is, by default, display flex does flex direction row, and that means it goes from left to right as a row. And so the x-axis is its main axis. So justify content takes effect here, and then align items takes effect on the y-axis. If you did flex direction column, it goes up and down from top to bottom, and then this is your main axis, the y-axis. So justify content would actually work there. So anyways, that's just a weird thing about display flex. So let's give that a shot, and then I said we'll give it a margin. I'll just set it off 15 pixels a bit. Let's take a look. Yep, there we go. So we got all of our links now in line with this image. We got a little bit of space up here on the top. This looks done to me. We're going to move on from the nav bar. I told you guys that we are going to try to make it so that way it stays at the top of my page as I scroll down. So we'll work on that later. But for now, let's finish the rest of the page. We'll come back to it. When I said I work from top to bottom, that's like a feature of the top, you know? So like it's finished. Like this is shippable, right? Like I could put this online, it'd be okay. So next would be the header. We took care of all of this, the nav. So now we're working down here on this header. So inside of the header, we have two divs side by side. We got header left and header right. One of them holds an image, one of them holds an H1 and a button. So we want those two things side by side. That's an easy one. We're going to display flex. By default, flex directions row, so that's perfect. Let's see if that had the desired effects. There we go. They're side by side now, so that's cool. Let's keep going. Again, we have that centering problem that we had with the image and the links before, so let's fix that. Go ahead and align items center. There we go. And why don't we, so here's an interesting thing. Header right now, if I do this, background color, say red. Header runs from all the way left to all the way right. I have two divs in here that are boxes, and I want to center them within the red. If I center the two things in the middle, the problem with that is they might center on top of each other, or the image is bigger than this, so they kind of like shift funny. You know what I mean? So if I were to do, actually what I could do here, and what I'll probably, let's try this. We'll do a justify content center, and that'll move both of them to the middle. right? But see, this is what I was talking about. If you draw a line right down the middle, the image is actually what's in the middle because of the size difference. So this is a little bit of a trickier one, I think. I don't know, maybe it's just my eyes. But to me, it looks like the image takes up more in the middle than the H1. So what I would prefer to do.
Can you just do a space between if it's display flex?
Space between. I don't know, let's try it. So instead of center, you want to do space between. I think that's going to put too big of a gap in the middle. Let's give it a shot. Yeah. You can try. What was that?
I said that's perfect.
I think what's going to be tricky here, let's do center. And I think what's going to fix it is if we set header left and header right to the same size. So what I mean is, if I do this right now, yeah, that's fine. If I set these to the same size, I think what will happen is that the center line will actually be in the center of the page. So this makes it pretty obvious that this is not centered, right? Like this is over to the left too much. So let's try that. I make both of them width 50%. We'll inherit the total width of the header and split it right down the middle between the two. Let's see what happens. So I know gut, like first reaction, like that's not right. But actually, if you look at it, this center line between the two halves is in the center of the page. This is actually what we're shooting for. Remember I said we're working from the outside in. So our problem now is this in relation to its box, the blue box, right? You guys see that? Is anyone unclear about that? Does that make sense to everybody? Cool.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of our funky colors. Everyone familiar with this comma syntax? Like I'm just saying whatever styles are in here apply to both of these things, header left and header right. So now let's work on them individually, mainly header left. How do you center some text? Well, it's not so much text actually. You have an H1 and a button. Let's try this. I don't know if this is going to work. Text, align, center. Yep, that did it. Cool. Now let's make that H1 bigger. So dot header left H1. How would you make it bigger? You guys know what units to use for font size? So font size can actually take pixels, percentages, rems, or ems. We'll cover rems and ems later on in the course. So for now, let's just stick with pixels. Let's try something huge to see. I always guess bad, so I'm saying this is huge and watch it not even be big enough. Yeah, it wasn't. Okay, let's go with something huger. That's made upward. 80. There we go. It's not pixel perfect, but it's pretty close, I think. What do you guys think? I'll roll with that. Yeah, let's style up this button a little bit and then we'll be done with our header. We'll probably shrink this image. I think it's too big. Yeah. I think we will. We'll work on that button. Dot header left button. We called it a button? We did. Cool. And we'll. So buttons are kind of a weird thing. Once you start styling them, it kind of blows all the other styles like out of the water for some reason. But anyways, let's try it. Font size. If I remember what 20 looks like, I think that should be pretty good. Oh, good. It actually kept a lot of the styles. Good. We'll give it a background color of white. A little bit cleaner. It's got that weird gray gradient right now. We'll get rid of that. And then the border, we'll thicken it up. Solid black. Okay. Cool. Usually with my buttons, I like to tell the user that they're hovering over them somehow, right? Like right now it's not. And also I kind of want a little more space between the edges and the text. So fix both those things right now. Give it some padding. We'll do something like 5 and 15. We'll see how that looks. And then header left button hover. What should it do when it hovers? My favorite pattern for this, like again, I'm no designer and I may do this and you're gonna be like, oh, that's disgusting. But I swap the background color with the font color on hover. And I think it looks pretty cool. So let's see. Just like that. Cool. So I like that. Let's shrink down that image. Whoa. We'll say 80%. The trick with working with images and making them not look ugly is if you're going to mess with width, then make height auto. If you're going to mess with height, make width auto. Okay, and then that way it's just keeping its own aspect ratio and it doesn't distort the image. This 80%, I'm not telling it to be 80% of its original size. I'm telling it to be 80% of its container, which is 50%. And that is 50% of its container, which is header, which is the full width of the page. Okay? So, all that being said, let's see how to fix it. Not much. Didn't do what I wanted to do. That's fine. See, that's the images are such a pain to work with. I actually don't like putting images in divs, and I think I mentioned that when we started this. And this is one of the reasons why. It just doesn't play by the rules, right? I think we're just going to leave the image, to be honest with you. You can mess around with that on your own, try to figure it out. The last thing I'm going to do is add some margin to the top and bottom of this header to give it the spacing here and here. We'll give it something like 25 pixels probably. So we'll find our header, margin, 25 pixels. So I'm hesitating right now because I don't want to add margin to the left and right. So I want to put 0, but then I don't know if that's going to mess with my Flexbox. So let's check it out. No, it looks good. So let's give it some more. That wasn't enough. Ah, that looks pretty good. Cool. So we got a nav bar, we got a header. Oh, you know what? We should probably add something to these. That way we know that we're hovering over them. That'll be a quick fix. Let's see. We'll do nav a hover. And why don't we just we'll give it a border. like a 1 pixel gray solid, just a little something so the user knows. You see how they're all moving a little bit? That's something with the box model. We didn't have a border before. And I have Flexbox telling it right now to space them all evenly around themselves. So I'm adding 2 pixels to the left and right of vision. And it's messing with the spacing of all of them. You see that? That's interesting. So easy way to fix that is to have a border on these. But just have them, make sure that they have a pixel, but make them invisible by making them the same as the background color. So that's what we'll do. And then I'm going to give these a little bit of padding because they're ugly the way they are. There we go. See, they don't jump around anymore because there's technically always a border box there. It's just white. You can't see it. So little hacky CSS trick gets the job done. All right, on to the next section. Let's go. We're done with nav. We're done with header. We hit the HR. I don't think we're going to style the HR because I added margin here, so we'll just add margin to the next piece. And that next piece, we're going to be inside of main. And it's going to be this section here with 2 articles in it. Features and about. All right. Does anyone have any questions so far? There's a lot fewer of us than around this time, so it's not as noisy. I just want to make sure before I keep going. Okay. So we'll go. So what's interesting is there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to do to every section, right? I'm going to add display flex to all 3 sections. I'm going to add display flex to this one. I'm going to add display flex to this one. This one, I don't have to, but for the sake of simplicity, if I added display flex to all 3, I could just add flex direction column to this. So I think what we're going to do is go to these sections, and you see I named them section 1. I'm also just going to add, or I guess I don't even have to do that. We'll just call them section. Because that's the semantic tag we gave. And we'll put a display flex on all 3 of them simultaneously. Let's see how bad we messed our page up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Dang, we just finished like 90% of the assignment right there. Oh, and look, in context inside of an article, and that article is technically display flexed. So that's awesome. That worked out great. I don't know what's going on with copyright. We'll figure it out when we get down there. This, yeah, I'm missing a caret or something. Let's see. Now I'm curious. I got to figure it out now. Yep, got an extra caret. This thing's called footer. Let's see. Did it really break it that bad? Yep, I guess so. All right, cool. All right. Let's see. Where's our preview? This actually looks pretty good as is. I think we need to add some margin and be done with this. We need some, we're gonna have to use our container to add some white space on the sides like it has here. But besides that, I think adding margin to the top and bottom of this, it's gonna make it good to go. So let's do that. I used 55 pixels, I think it was, yeah, for the header. So that's what we'll do for this first section. We called it section 1. And we'll give it the margin top and bottom is going to be 55, and then left and right we'll give it 0. Because we're not going to add the margins to our sections, we're going to add it to our whole container. So let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. I'm wondering actually now, we could probably just move this line into section. And let's see what that did. Yes, I will take that. That looks good. That looks really good. I'm surprised, guys. We're doing well. Let's go ahead and do our container. Did we call it container? I believe we did. Yeah, dot container. All right, width. Let's talk about width. A couple of things that you could do with width, just like font. You could give it a pixel. You can give it a percent. And then you can give this other thing called VW. VW, you actually give it ER and REM too, I think. But anyways, you'll go over EM and REM later. They're crazy. VW stands for viewport width. So literally, it's like the percentage of the window, because percentage doesn't work on the window; it works on containers. So since we're working on a container that goes in the whole window, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 80 VW, which is going to be basically 80% of the viewport. Cool. So you see that's like 20% of it right there. Cool. So we got to do one more thing, and that's center it. So we'll give it a margin of 0 and auto. And there it is. You guys, I think we pretty much did it. This looks awesome. Let's fix these down here. I don't like them blue. We'll make them gray like our other things and give them the boxes on the hover. We'll center this. Oh, this image. Ooh, it's not stretching all the way. We'll fix that too. Oh, and this is hitting. So we need some margin in the middle here, or maybe some like space around or something. We'll figure that one out. Cool. So there's a couple ways to fix that. Let's tackle the most complicated one first, and that's going to be the spacing in the middle. I could go to each individual article and give this a margin right, and give this a margin right, and give this a margin right. I give them all margin rights, and then like except for last child, and not give it a margin, or that kind of thing. Or I could use space around. Technically, right now, these do have space around. Like they're evenly spaced all the way around. What I have to do is limit their width and then evenly distribute what's left over. Okay, so we're going to, where's section? There it is. We're gonna make another one called article. And so actually, the tricky thing here is that we have one section with 2 articles and one section with 1 article, and then one section with 2 articles. So we're gonna have to do this individually. So section 1, section 1. All the articles in section 1, which is the one with the 2 in them, or 3 in them? 2 in them. We're gonna give this a width of say 40%. And that leaves us 20% of spacing. So then if I, on that section 1, give it display flex and space around. Oh wait, did we already give it display flex? Yeah, right above that. Right here, we gave all of our sections display flex, so we actually don't need this line. Sorry about that. And then we're just going to justify the content with the space around. Yeah, look at that. That's great. 40% might be a little bit small. That's the only thing I'm not loving. Let's try like 43. Push it a little more, 45. This is like 90% of CSS for me, is just like going back and forth to see what I like. Okay, cool. I like that a lot. So let's do it to section 2. I just realized something. We could probably give this here. And then just work on the article width. Let's make sure I didn't break anything. Yeah, that worked. Okay. So now there's 3 of them. So the max I could do would be something like 33%, but it needs some space. So let's try 30%. See how that looks. I just realized I'm not putting semicolons. Oh my gosh. You're an animal. All right. Yeah. Yep. I like that. That worked out good. Yep. And it's got the titles aligned to the left. They're not centered or nothing, so that's perfect. Let's fix that image. Don't need you. Does that image have a class on it? That'd be great if whoever did the CSS planned ahead for that. Yep. Mid-page accent. And we just wanted to span the total width of our container. So we wanted to inherit the container and do all of it. So we'll do 100%. And we're messing with an image. So if that's going to grow, let's grow that too so we don't distort the image. Now, it is going to be a little bit blurry because it was too small and we're making it bigger to fit something. It's going to make it a little blurry, but that's not our fault. That's the designer's fault for giving us a bad image. All right, perfect. Uh-oh, space around messed with this one. So we can fix that. Remember, it's a cascading style sheet. So we're able to come down here to the bottom and just overwrite what it knows already. And that's going to be justify content flex start, I think. Sounds right to me. Let's try it. There we go. Move contact back where it goes. Let's add a BR here. Let's section. You know what? Interesting. So we're actually going to do the same exact thing to these A's that we did to the navbar. So instead of doing them to just the A's in the navbar, let's do it to all of the A's on the page. Right? And I like to keep things in order of like general to more specific and from top to bottom. So because this is so general, it's actually going to go to the very top of my CSS. Okay? That makes sense? All right. Let's see how that did. Cool. Uh-oh, something goofy's going on here. Oh yeah, it's not liking this. The padding is making the box go into the things above it. You can actually see those white borders that we gave them. How interesting. That's cool. Let's use that cascading effect. It's not a footer. It's dot section 3 article. Okay. Take away the border completely. And let's take this. Paste it. Hover. We'll give it a different hover effect. When you hover over this, it's going to turn black. That's all. It doesn't have to be a lot. just something to tell our user, like, hey, you're touching something. Do you want to be touching this? See that? It's actually a little backwards. Like you might want to go black and then gray. Like, let's do that. That's probably better. Yeah, I like that a lot more. Why is it over to the left? I wonder if A tags come with some kind of margin on their own. Let's see. Oh no, duh, Joe, it's the padding you gave it for the border. So we'll just reset that as well. There we go. That looks great. And it just looks like it's part of it. I like that a lot. Last thing is everything in the footer. Text, align, center. I said last thing, and that was a lie. It's not the last thing. Because I told you guys we were going to make that nav bar stick. So let's do that. Give that 10 pixels there. Oops. Open up FaceTime by accident. Don't look. All right. This is a completed page, guys. We finished the assignment, actually. Just, yeah. So if that's all you wanted, we're done. We did it. But I'm going to add this one last feature, and then I'll call it done. So that's going to be this nav bar. And we're going to give it a position. Fixed. That's going to cause a little problem here, and we'll work it out together. Ooh. Oh, what is it doing? Oh, no. Cool. That actually was not the problem I anticipated. Let's look this up. So stick nav bar to top in HTML. How to create a sticky nav bar. All right, W3 Schools is a great resource, you guys. This is a good place to come. Let's see what they did. Looks like they did a float. I don't know why. Block. Oh, here we go.
Need to assign it a top of 0 and a left of 0.
Exactly. Top 0. That's what it's saying. Cool. You knew that before we got to W3 Schools? Good work.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yeah, so we'll assign it that, and we'll see what happens. And you said a left 0?
Left would actually just leave it where it's at. You might need to put it in the center somehow. I'm not sure exactly.
I wonder if it needs this now. I wonder if it's a block element on its own, and then I wonder if by giving it position fixed, it changes it to an inline somehow or something. Let's see. Yeah, interesting. All right, now do you see the problem? This is the problem I actually anticipated I saw coming. The background, we were hiding those boxes before on a white background. The white background does not belong to the nav though. It's transparent. I almost said invisible. It's transparent. That's the word I was looking for. So let's fix that. We are going to give our nav bar a background. That's all. That'll fix it. The other thing that kind of messed up here is the margin that we gave the header to be on top is not working anymore. Because the position is fixed, yeah, it's 55 pixels away from the top of the page, but the nav bar is just sitting right on top of that margin. And so it's not doing what we want it to. So what we're actually going to do is take the margin off of this, give it margin bottom, or I'm sorry, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to give it more margin. So the height of the nav bar is what we're going to give the margin. Does that make sense? Okay, so height, I don't know how big this is, so let's say 50 pixels for now and check that out. 50 pixels looks like a good height to me. I'll change this back. Okay, and then we're gonna give this, so right now, what this line says is margin top 55 pixels, margin bottom 55 pixels. It actually says margin top 55 pixels, margin right 0, margin bottom 55 pixels, margin left 0. Okay, we're gonna be a little bit more specific here because margin top needs to be greater. So we're just gonna make this margin bottom, and then we're gonna get rid of the 0 altogether because that's default anyways. And margin top, we're gonna give it, it's 55 pixels we want, and we're gonna give it 50 pixels for the nav bar. So we're gonna give it 105 pixels. You signed up to be a software engineer, you didn't know it involved math, sucker. Boom, check that out. And look at this, look at it, it follows us. Ew, I don't like that space on top though, let's fix that. Oh, how did we do that? Let's see. How did we do that? Margin top, 15 pixels. Look at that. No more. Who knew about this top 0? Who was that? Was that Mikey?
That was me, yeah.
Okay. Is that top 0 pixels?
0 everything. So percentage, VH, you name it. It's 0. So
Okay,
So,
so
it's
so
pixels.
if is it like a margin top in a way? Like if what I'm wondering is where is that white space coming from?
That would more than likely be that margin top, was it not?
I guess it was. So I guess what I want to do now, it looks okay the way it is. Okay, I see what I want to do now. I want to give it a padding top. We're going to use the box model.
There you
and
go.
give it a padding top. How much did I have there? Like 15 pixels? Something like that?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
We'll give it to the top and the bottom because I have OCD and symmetry matters to me. Look at that. Check this out too. Watch this. Contact. About. Features. Look at that. Oh, it's because it's under the nav bar. Whatever, guys. I'm done with this. This looks good. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Any questions? Or can we wrap this thing up?
Would you mind sharing the CSS for that one?
Yeah, definitely. So what I'll do, let me save it. What's the best way to do this? I'll push it to GitHub and then share the GitHub link, and then you'll be able to view the branch code there.
Right on.
Is that cool?
Yep.
And then so there will be that. And then I also recorded this whole thing, so we'll have a recording if you guys want to look at it. We have the recording of the first half too. Dang, it's crazy. I'm just now seeing my video. I can't believe how dark it is behind me now. A lot of time passed. How much time we spent on this? Oh, only an hour. That's not bad. It's not bad, guys. All right, cool. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.
Cool. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem.